Last weekend, Salmon has decided to invade Wahoo World during an event called bigrun, which is basically salmonrun's version of Splatfest in Splatoon 3, and I've seen a lot of people debate about if bigrun itself was even a good event in the first place, so let's talk about that. My name is Mellow, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into it. So to briefly summarize my thoughts and experience with bigrun by itself, it was absolutely amazing, and I had a ton of fun. This is 100% a great addition to Splatoon and salmonrun in general, and further eliminates any worries that salmonrun in Splatoon 3 would be too similar to Splatoon 2. And in addition, people that mostly play Splatoon just for salmonrun have something to look forward to, just like how people that mostly play Turf War have Splatfest to look forward to. On the other hand though, when you compare it to something like Splatfest and it being a rare event for everyone to look forward to, that's where I believe it doesn't fully achieve that, but I'll get to that much later. Firstly, I want to talk about everything that's good, starting with how insanely cool its concept is in the first place. Salmonids are invading the Splatlands, and we gotta put a stop to it on multiplayer stages that already exist, and whatever map is being affected is completely left out of every normal rotation until it ends. Wahoo World was also completely abandoned, and it just adds to the seriousness of the situation that bigrun caused, which is really good and makes the atmosphere so unsettling. I love how both in the actual mode, the square, and in the lobby, the sky is this reddish pink color that resembles the color scheme of an actual salmon, and going back to the square, you have no music. Just dead silence with the ambiance of helicopters moving people and this dissonant siren that slightly resembles salmonrun's lobby music. It's an eerie and creepy way to set the tone of what's happening in a way that you can't easily ignore, and I'm glad the devs did that. Going back to bigrun itself, that music remix is crazy, and again reaffirms the fact that salmonids are invading and nothing is safe here, not even the music, and that cello player deserves a fucking raise. In fact, I'm gonna go a little bit off topic and be a bit of a music nerd and say how much I love how the devs make the salmonrun music so complex with its diversity of time signatures, and this remix is mostly in like a fast-paced 3/4 time. It's insane. It's not something they have to do, but they do it anyway, and I love it so much. It's a crime that like one of the most overlooked aspects about salmonrun in general is the music, and I just want more people to pay attention to it. It's so good. They also implemented things to incentivize players that don't normally play salmonrun to participate in bigrun, like 2,400 points of consistent bonuses instead of only 1,200 points, adding a boost to the catalog meter so you can get more items, and rewards at the end to encourage players to try and collect as many eggs as possible in every single wave and continue playing if they feel like they can do better. Another thing I feel most people have to remember is that there are individuals that play Splatoon primarily for salmonrun, and during bigrun, extremely skilled salmonrun players that normally get an obscene amount of eggs were getting much more attention, especially on social media. When people see this for the first time, it's jaw-dropping and introduces much more people into the salmonrun community where they can learn even more about how the mode works, and overfishing, which is basically collecting as many eggs as possible. It really inspires people, and hopefully as the salmonrun community expands and gets bigger, people that weren't able to be part of the top 5% this time can feel more confident about reaching that for next time. And finally, the main thing that bigrun does so well, especially when comparing it to Splatfest, is that every single other mode is still available to you if you don't feel like doing bigrun. It's not an obligation, and to this day, one of the biggest problems with Splatfest is that you can't play any ranked modes for 48 hours, which doesn't appeal to everyone that plays this game. There are people that simply do not like salmonrun, and this is the game's way of saying, hey, that's perfectly fine. Everyone has different preferences for how they want to play Splatoon, and we're not going to force you into something that you don't like, and here's hoping the developers change this for Splatfest in the future. So overall, those are my main reasons as to why bigrun by itself is really good for this game, but where I have problems with it mostly has to do with when you want to compare it to an event that already exists, like Splatfest, where Splatfest is overall just better in its atmosphere and approach to get people to try it. Now, I already talked about the atmosphere being good, but I think it needs a little more than it already has. During Splatfest, everyone in the square has an actual reaction to what's going on, and they're having an amazing time that makes the environment so vibrant and captivating to experience. People are dancing and jellyfish are cooking meals on the side for this once-in-a-while event, and you have an actual gimmick being Deep Cut, doing their performances that you can actually take a moment to watch and appreciate and is extremely hard to ignore. bigrun has some visual aspects in the square, but no one there has an actual reaction to the fact that we're being invaded by salmonids, and with the square itself, there's not really anything to really bring that home and add seriousness to the situation that we're currently in. Not even the idols seem too phased about everything that's going on. They kinda just brush it off, and I wish the game would do much more to tell us that we're in serious danger. My second problem with bigrun are the prizes you receive at the end, being a trophy and a badge, which vary depending on the maximum amount of eggs that you were able to obtain by the end of the entire event. My issue with them isn't necessarily how much I feel they're actually worth, but because I feel it isn't enough to get people that don't normally play salmonrun to play a good amount of bigrun or try to be part of the top 5%. At the end of Splatfest, the more matches you play in order to raise your your title from fan to ruler, the more sea snails you'll be rewarded, and that prize is ultimately something that can appeal to people that don't normally play turf war, which pretty much sums up the majority of the competitive community in Splatoon. In short, what I'm trying to say is Splatfest is something that mostly appeals to people that play the game casually, with prizes that casual and competitive players can look forward to, while Big Run is something that mostly appeals to Salmon Run players, with prizes that mostly only Salmon Run players can look forward to. It's not something that kills the experience of the mode itself, but if you want people that don't regularly play Salmon Run or don't even like Salmon Run to play Big Run, give them prizes that they'll be more inclined to actually want. My final issue with Big Run is something that's really bad on surface level, but maybe more reasonable the more you dig into it, which is the removal of specific Salmon Run modes. If you're not aware, Big Run didn't include the modes Quahog Charge, Mudmouth, Goldie Seeking, and Tornado, and the removal of content in any video game is never typically a good thing. You could argue that some of these modes would be impossible to incorporate onto multiplayer maps, but personally, I could see all of them work, at least on Wahoo World with a bit of tweaking and maybe adding more gushers onto the map itself that would only activate specifically for some of these modes. I've also seen people argue that it'd make collecting as many eggs as possible much easier or harder depending on the RNG of these modes, and is mainly why I said removing them could be reasonable. I'm no expert on Salmon Run, so I'm not really going to go too deep into this, but to anyone watching who is, I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below. But that's basically everything I kind of had a problem with regarding Big Run, and while most of these are not necessarily a huge issue, if it wants to compete with something like Splatfest and be more memorable as an event, I feel like these need to be addressed more than anything else, and I have some solutions for that. To start off, a few months ago before Big Run, I had the idea of the majority of the square being flooded to the top of the stairs with green sludge or water or whatever that weird stuff is. The shopkeepers and the recon guide would have to relocate to the top of the stairs or just anywhere in this upper area in order to still sell stuff. The mailbox and the amiibo box could be floating at the edge to be a cool way in which they're still accessible, and again, I don't know how story mode could still be played, but I'd still like something to be implemented in order to not get rid of content that already exists. People around the square should have terrified and concerned looks, and some could even be calling on their phones to let loved ones know that they're safe despite everything that's going on. Imagine opening the game and you're forced to just spawn at the top of the stairs because Big Run just floods the entire square. That's a gimmick you simply can't ignore, and is something cool I wouldn't mind Nintendo stealing, honestly. Secondly, the prizes at the end could include a certain amount of sea snails, or maybe instead ability chunks to not make it too similar to Splatfest. Honestly, whatever makes it so that more people are inclined to actually play the mode. Some other changes I've seen talked about include a halftime report, so everyone has a better idea of how many eggs you'll need in order to reach whatever percentage group you want to be in. I've seen people want more than one map at a time being invaded, and that's not bad at all. It's more content and only adds more to the fact that the Splatlands are being invaded and that this truly is a big threat. I've seen people want leaderboards to see who the best Salmon Run players are in each region, and that's good. Let's give them some recognition and see how insanely good they are at pushing this mode to its limits. During late October, when most of the community believed we'd get Big Run for Halloween, people made insanely cool intro parodies, and I've seen art of Salmon as replacing the idols and taking over the news. I don't think I need to explain why that's really good. Bottom line, there's an endless amount of things that they could add to the future to make this mode better, but that doesn't mean that it's not already really good. Most of the things that I said were bad about Big Run were in comparison to Splatfest and what it needs in order to be as impactful, but Big Run is new and I can understand why everything isn't brought up to that standard. I think Big Run is easily one of the best additions to Splatoon, and I'm glad Salmon Run players have something to look forward to. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought about Big Run in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.